Welcome back, and let's get right to it. I first want to make this video solely to introduce, there's been permission, you can pass out one of the reports that we were getting from our private blog at martinarmstrongeconomics.com. Actually I can say stronger than my opinion, in my knowledge, in my surety, there is no finer human being on the planet that is any more sincere, and certainly anybody not nearly as knowledgeable as Martin Armstrong when it comes to many things in terms of financial, in terms of trading, and in terms of more than lately, he's been railroaded into being a geopolitical analyst, second to none. Part of that is because of the amount of connections he has, and he also has no ulterior motive. He's not selling anything. He's not of any one particular pathway that tries to lead you in that direction. So what I want to do is basically introduce you, and I'm going to be linking it in the bottom of this video. So please, it's a 200+ page report. And if you really want to understand what is going on between Ukraine, Russia, the US, and NATO, which basically is the US at this point, you really owe it to yourself to read this PDF. Nothing but straight fact, but it's going to continue, or rather it's going to begin in the earlier parts of history. And so often, to understand where we are currently, we need to understand history and how we got there to begin with. Martin's going to walk you through this step by step. I'll go through just a couple of headlines of the chapters just to give you a better idea. But the PDF is called US and Russia, Reestablishing Peace. And there's a subheadline, and it's the EU clings to its Marxism and war as its economy falters. It's going to discuss about the pre-signed Minsk Agreements of 2016, which Europe reneged on. And they blatantly admitted, and it is public, you can look it up if you want, they blatantly admitted they never wanted to honor it. They never were going to honor it. They just wanted some more time to build up a formidable army to offset Russia. This is all about, in a nutshell, Russia's natural resources, which is estimated at somewhere near $77 trillion worth of resources, and in conjunction with Europe's failing economy, which cannot last much more than a year and a half. Again, I've discussed why the central bank digital currencies are coming to fruition the first part of 2026. And y'all better get your money out of there, because you're not going to be able to. Currency controls are right around the corner. I just took the table of contents on my laptop, and I'm going to read you a few of the chapters just to give you an idea, okay? There is a lengthy preface in it to give you a basic idea of where this starts. Then it's passing hatred from one generation to the next. The history of ethnic cleansing plagues the Balkans and Ukraine. And Ukraine, another chapter, the capital of ethnic cleansing. Anybody who's studied history, as you know, many times I mention this in my videos, the Ukrainians made the Nazis look like kindergarten students compared to the things they have done to people and the atrocities they have committed. And I cannot I just can't imagine how people in the West are cheering, and we're trying to support Ukraine. Now, granted, it's diminishing a little bit. Eventually, it always does, just like the COVID thing, but it's always too late. The damage has been caused. Anybody who does not understand the West has been supporting Nazism for such a long time in its history, post-World War II and even prior to it. Well, you just haven't studied your history. And I'm not putting the West down by saying that. I'm just saying it is what it is. There's a blueprint for peace section in this, Marxism, protectionism, and a plan for peace. There's a complete step-by-step, and it's actually relatively simple, step-by-step for peace between Russia and America, where actually they'd be working together. Now, if the plan was, like people kind of tell you, to split up China and Russia, everything your politicians have done in the West right now and in the EU, which their people are not even elected, they're appointed. So forget about anywhere near the word democracy. Not that America is a democracy, but it never was. But anyway, it wasn't designed to be, but that's for another video. Anyway, the point being, all they did was push Russia and China closer together, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose. This report will go into a way that not to purposely make enemies of China and Russia, but to divide the playing field. So actually everybody can win. If you would take the time to read this and really see the good, common sense, factual information presented here, there is a plausible scenario. There's a restoration package and what Russia would have to give. And much of this they've already agreed to do, mind you. But they have to honor the Minsk Agreements. And the Donbass has to have the right to vote. Do they want to retain and go back to their Russian heritage? Or do they want to still be slaughtered and killed and call themselves fake Ukrainians? Well, you know what the answer will that be, and that's exactly what a big part of this whole kind of contagion between the three countries has been. Anyway, there is a tunnel also that they've been talking about for quite some time now, and they're going to implement it. As strange as this might sound, and you probably haven't heard about it, in the West I'm certain you haven't heard about it, but this is not new information. A tunnel from Russia to Alaska. The amount of rare earths and minerals and oil and gas that's in the Antarctic is just absolutely incredible. This PDF proposes a peaceful plan. Russia has the technology of the mining and the ability to extract rare earth, which is a very unique means because it's actually not all that rare. What's rare about it is if it's in the percentages that make it worth mining for. Okay, where they lack the expertise is actually dividing it from the waste, okay? And they do not have the pocketbook to do this. That's where United States would come in. It would come in with investment, and it would come in with know-how on how to separate the rare earth from the base, that's waste. It would be an excellent team, and both countries would flourish. We don't have to be going to war for any of this. Europe is the problem. The EU is the problem, and the supporting neocons from the West. But none of this has to come to fruition. And as there is more talk about, okay, there's threatening in Venezuela and maybe sticking it further on into Colombia, which of course anybody who's done any studying knows it has absolutely nothing to do with the drug war coming from Venezuela. It's a government overthrow. And I'm not saying Maduro is an excellent person, but I am saying, you guys in the West, don't you have enough of your own problems? I mean, just take a look at the people living in the streets. Take a look at a government that's been shut down for, my goodness, what's it going on now? Months? I mean, take a look at how you've become to hate each other just for a difference of opinion. You can't talk to each other anymore. You're totally divided. I don't even know if it's repairable at this point, but the neocons have got their way, and they're dividing the country from within, just like Abraham Lincoln said, all great countries will be divided from within, all great nations rather. And that's exactly what you're seeing. You're also going to see here a lot more information about Europe being the problem, and it goes back into the histories, all the way back to Rome, all the way back to the Ottoman Empire. Croatia's heavily involved, the former Yugoslavia, and Czechoslovakia, now, you know, the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic and Yugoslavia, how countries are divided by ethnic origin all across the world. That's how it's been done. And we need to understand this. We're not going to change these people's beliefs any more than we are in the Mideast, which is very tribal. That's why you talk to these people and it's always, oh, I'm Sunni, but I live in Iran. Oh, I'm Shiite, but I live in the Sudan. It's always tribe first, geography second. Western people have trouble understanding that because we all look at, they all look at themselves as Americans, regardless if you're from Maine or California. You're American. You don't say, I'm an American, but I'm from the tribe of Maine. That's not how it works, but that's how it works in the Mideast, and it's never changing. It's very, very religious bound, and you're not going to change that thinking. You need to learn how to get along with it. Any more than they could actually implement and say, you can't speak Spanish in America no more. Don't you think that would cause a little bit of trouble? That's what you're trying to do in their countries by understanding it from your point of view. Actually, in The Art of War, Lao Tzu says, if you don't understand your enemy, you will never win a war. You lose every one of them. I don't think you can name me one that after World War II that America did end up on the victorious side. Every other one was designed to be prolonged for money, but not to win. That's why they haven't won any of them. Anyway, you'll find out about the Arctic cooperation between America and Russia and how that can benefit the entire world, especially you guys out in the States. It would be a great way for you guys to re-stimulate your economy and get things going again. The dishonesty of the EU, NATO, and Ukraine. Of course, she's passed away, but Madeleine Albright, neocon, and the Balkan Wars. Again, you have neocons that are put into place because they want to control certain ways and certain outcomes by putting in various puppet governments and things of this nature. Well, for example, here's a great one that's recent. You take a look, you have Anthony Blinken, you have Victoria Nuland, and you have, I'm trying to remember the third name, but anyway, it's not important right now, but I'm trying to remember the third name. But anyway, all three of them are of Ukrainian descent. Now, these are people that were designing the foreign policy for America right now. All three of them also claim that the Russians, long ago, had actually infiltrated and hurt their families, their great-grandparents, made life miserable for them, killed some of their family and what have you. So you pick three people. What are the odds of this? Ask yourself that question, that are of Ukrainian descent, that are Jewish. Do your research, you'll find out Victoria Nuland. Nuland is not her maiden last name. I believe it's Noodleman, but don't quote me on that. But Nuland is what she's changed her last name. So all three are Ukrainian Jews that were persecuted by the Russians. And this is who you have in your foreign policy, and you expect peace? Got to start asking good questions like that. It goes into also the Kosovo War. And the final chapters are, is peace with Russia possible? And if you read this PDF, you're going to find out it's not possible. It's very possible. As a matter of fact, last week they called in Martin Armstrong. The U.S. government has called him in to design this peace plan. And he, from what I understand about it, the only reason he made this public and not strictly on his private blog, which we've been members of for, gosh, I can't remember how many years. The only reason he made it public was to get this out to as many people as possible. It's that important to possibly prevent a major war here that will end up nuclear. There's no question about that. And one of his demands about doing it, because he's called in all over the world, governments call him in to solve problems, be it economic problems, now it seems geopolitical problems, because he knows the right people. He's unbiased, and he knows people on both sides, okay? And he knows a lot of people in the neoconservative tribe there, and he knows how everybody thinks, and he decisively puts things together that work for both sides, because that's the only way you're going to get peace. And after that, I think it was a 7-step plan, and it's actually quite simple. And then there's a handsome conclusion at the end of it, okay? And it's also my personal experience, the recent dip in metals, which I told people about 3 weeks ago, and about a few days after that, gold and silver, you know, went down reasonable from their astronomical highs. I mean, of course, they're still way up there, and things are great in terms of that aspect of it, but they did go down about 15%. You know, that's a sizable dip when you're talking of something that's over $4,000 an ounce. Silver went from $54 to as low as $44. I think it's around $48 now. That's a sizable dip, but it doesn't mean they're still not fantastic. And another thing that happened, have you noticed? Cryptos. Take a look at Bitcoin, take a look at XRP, Monero, and you're going to find out these things are also entangled geopolitically. After all, one of the biggest reasons Bitcoin was soaring up over the last year has been people from foreign countries reallocating into countries they think would be safer, which is, quote, for the largest part, US. Money always leaves where the war is going to take place, and it always ventures back in to America. Why? Because quite simply, you don't want tanks rolling down the street, and you don't want bombs overhead of your bank building. Anyway, please read this. Take the time. It's the most important PDF I think or most important information I think I've ever shared with you folks, you good folks, and that's why this is such a lengthy video. I apologize for the length of it, but it is that important. If we cannot come to an agreement with this in the first parts of 2026, certainly within the second quarter, you are going to see a vicious breakout around the world, and it's not going to be good for anybody. Think of your families, think of your children, think of their futures. A lot of it depends on you. You're the one that has the ability to get this out. Regardless of what friends or family think of you, I don't understand how anybody in any belief can call themselves a God-fearing person and allow millions of Ukrainians and hundreds of thousands of women and children in Gaza to be slaughtered simply because their belief is different than perhaps your own. I don't understand it. I read all of the religious texts. I am an avid reader. I learn from all of them, but I don't remember ever reading anything that ever mentioned if they don't believe the same as I do, let them die and turn the shoulder. Don't even care about it. I've never read that yet. Anyway, it's a long video. I apologize, and we'll talk with you soon.